So the next topic here will be about improving the robustness through genetic and farrowing housing in pigs. And we are two presenters here. So Pia Vanggaard, you could say a few words about yourself.
Yes. Hello. We are a small company from Denmark, and it's the first time we are in a big project. So I apologize for my English. I hope you can understand me, and Lene will help me a little bit. So in the normal way, we have been working with pigs for 25 years, but the conventional pigs. So about 8 years ago, we started to develop huts for outdoor production.
Thank you, Pia. And I'm a professor at Aarhus University doing research within animal welfare and behavior in pig mainly. And I'm from the Department of Animal and Veterinary Science at Aarhus University. So I will just start introducing the topic. So where we are now here in the farrowing of pig and in the organic pig production. And I'll just introduce it by saying that welfare is very important, quality of the organic meat, as you all know. So we have to remember that it's a reason for consumers to pay the high price they do for the organic meat. And therefore, outdoor rearing on paddock really is an important lever to increase the animal welfare, because we know for sows that the sows have a really strong motivation to perform nest building. They cannot do that very well in a conventional system. But on paddock, they can really gather and walk around, gather nest building materials and build nests inside the hut. They also have thermal choices when they are outside, because they can have different thermal environments both inside the hut and outside. You can see here, for example, they can wallow in water if that is provided. The environment is much more enriched, because they can forage on the paddock and perform exploratory behavior, which is very high motivated behavior in pigs. And also they can perform social behavior and learning from mother to offspring. So there's a lot of benefit of having the sows outdoor at this particular part of their life. Then I'll just introduce, because we come both from Denmark, so that is our kind of offset here. So I'll just introduce how the organic setting for this type of animals are in Denmark. So when the Danish producers produce under their organic label in Denmark, the sow must be farrowing on a paddock like you see up here. So they farrow in this small A-shaped hut. That is a traditional way of doing it. And they have access to individual fenced paddocks. They must be provided with a wallow with water in if the temperature goes beyond 16 degrees Celsius. Some of the farmers also have trees, as you see up here. They have trees to both to provide shadow for the animal, to provide enrichment, but also to provide a possibility for taking up the manure and using that so that it's not spoiling or leakage to the environment. The huts, inside the hut, I don't have a photo of there, but they provide a lot of straw in there so that the sows can nest build and they can have a good thermal environment around farrowing. But one of the problems we have is for a little bit like with the poultry, that we don't have a genetic solution for these animals that are developed under the organic condition. So what the Danish farmers have used are conventional breeds, which is selected. Typically, we have used the Danbred Landrace Yorkshire crosses. They are really highly prolific. So I wrote here 18.7 total born per litter. I think now it's close to 20 born piglets per litter, and that's really extremely high. So these animals are selected for high number of live pigs day 5 under indoor condition in a crate system. And for ensuring piglet survival in such litters, you need to do a lot of management. So what conventional farmers are doing, they make cross-fostering, of course, to even out the litter, but they also use this nurse sows where sows are nursing their own litter and then they're taking away, and then newborn piglets are moved to that litter because they simply don't have teats enough. They're also supplemented with extra milk, etc., to improve the survival. But then when we go to this organic setting in the huts, it's really very difficult for farmers to do such management. So here it's more the survival of the piglet rely much more on the sow's ability to take care, and especially also on the robustness of the piglets. So therefore, we see quite a high mortality rate in organic production. It has been, for some years ago, we evaluated in a very large-scale study in Denmark, and it was in average 29% of the total born piglets that died before they were weaned at 7 weeks of age. So that is really a huge problem, both because it's unsustainable in terms of welfare, but it's also unsustainable in terms of resource use and economic. There's a value of around €100 for a live-born or a live pig. That's the worst in price. So therefore, we have had a lot of focus on reducing piglet mortality, and in the PPILOW project, that is what we have worked with in the Danish part and also in the French part, where they have worked specifically with the genetics. So what we have worked with in the PPILOW project is 2 levers to improve piglet survival. So one lever is the genetic selection targeted towards the organic production in an outdoor environment. And that was the French task in PPILOW, but unfortunately, Lorianne Canaria, who did this work, could not be here. But instead, I will talk about some results we have from a Danish project in organic production about this. The other lever, which is what we have done together with Vanggaard and Aarhus University, that is to improve the hut design and management around farrowing. So I'll talk a little bit more about this. I'll start with the genetic selection here. So what we have done recently in a study, we have compared the production in two breeds that are used. Traditionally in Denmark, we only had the very prolific Danbred, but recently within the last 5 years, we have also introduced another quite prolific breed, also the Dutch topic Nordsvin TN70 line. But even though that is also a prolific breed, it's still less prolific than the Danbred. We have then had groups of 30 sows, 15 from each breed, together, not in a group, but they farrow at the same time in the same batch. And then we have followed the production of these throughout 5 parities or until they were taken out of the production. So they were like in the A-shaped hut, they were on paddocks with the poplar tree, and they were weaned in this herd. They weaned the pigs at 10 weeks because they had some kind of extended, improved organic production system. So here's some results. I'll just take you slowly through them here. So we looked at we compared the topic Nordsvin with the Danbred, the number of born piglets, and we have the parity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the total number of born. So you can see here all over the Danbred were somewhat much higher, particularly when they came up into the 4th and 5th parity. They had an extremely high number of total born pigs. When we then look at the survival rate, we also had a significantly higher survival rate in the less prolific breed, particularly in the first parity, but also higher throughout the entire period. And then what was the most interesting part of this was that even though they had quite a higher number of piglets born, we weaned, the same number of pigs were weaned from these 2 breeds. So we could actually achieve the same number of weaned pigs using a less prolific breeds. So from these that were weaned for the first 3 parities, 13 piglets, while only 12 were weaned for the 4th and 5th parity. likely because the litter size here was extremely high, and that is really difficult for the sow to take care of. Then also what we looked at was the weight of the piglet. So you can see here we had a clear effect of the breeds. So also for the less prolific, I will do this in quotes because it's quite prolific also, but here we had a higher birth weight of the piglet in the less prolific. We also had a higher weaning weight, and what was even more severe, or not severe, but larger difference is if we take the litter weight at weaning. So even though they got less piglet at birth, they weaned a heavier litter in total. So I thought that was quite promising. So we can see that the less prolific breed had a higher weaning weight and birth weight, and also weaned a higher number of kilo of pig in total. Then the last thing, I will just talk very briefly about that. That's another study we did also on these two breeds. So we selected out from video, we had video on them, and we selected out 72 crossing events from the two breeds, and then looked very carefully from the video what characterized the crossing events just the moments before. So we divided what we saw into different causes of causal factors for crossing. So we looked into what we call poor maternal behavior, which could be things like lack of nosing piglets before postural changes. So this is a natural way for sows to gather the kind of nose and find out where the piglets are and gather them in one corner, and then they lay down on the other side. It could also be flopping down without body control. That's something that has been found to be a really risky behavior for the piglets. Or it could be low responsiveness to piglet alarm scream when they cross them. And we saw, like for very few of these, actually the poor maternal behavior was involved, except that for the low responsiveness, we didn't see very often that the sow was actually responding when she crossed the piglet. But that said, I need to mention that the head was squeezed under the sow in very many of the occasions, so that it would also limit the ability of the piglets to scream, and we couldn't hear that on video. Crossed against walls, we look at that because that would say something about that we need to change the design inside the hut, but that was actually very rarely occurring in relation to the crossing. But what we saw was that very often, or more than 50 to 100% of the crossing events, then the piglets were clustered in the middle of the pen where the sow has just been lying. So when the sow kind of lie in the middle of the pen, she warms this up, and then when she raises up, this is a really nice warm area, so the piglets then cluster there, and when she lies down again, then there's a high risk of crossing. So there might be some possibility there for improving the hut design. And also we saw that low viability of crossed piglets were present, particularly in the Dan breed. So in 34, almost 40% of the crossing events, piglets were already weak or small, whereas there was less of these in the Topic North Sweden. So therefore, we concluded from this that crossing can be reduced by breeding for more robust piglets, for example, using less prolific breeds. We could improve care of small and weak piglets beyond improving their robustness when there are weak piglets, but we would need something to do something within the hut design. That could be, for example, also provide a heated creep area for the piglets, and that is something of what we have been tested in the PPILOW project. So therefore, I will give the word to Pia now, because then she will introduce, I have one more slide, sorry. Pia will then later introduce how we worked with the hut design to improve that. But before that, I'll just have a few words about what is the challenge of the current hut design that is used in organic production. And as you can see here, for the farmer, there's very poor working condition because it's very low. There's only this small entrance, so it's very difficult to observe the animals at farrowing and assist them at farrowing if there's problems. For example, if the litter is large and there need to be cross-fostering and care for the weak piglets, this is very difficult. And that is, of course, a problem for the pig, but also for the farmer, because its both can be a bit dangerous because the sow is very protective in such system. But also, I mean, it can work for a young person, but then when you become 50 or 60, it's not very easy to work in these systems. For the sow and the piglets, the hut size do not really fit the very large sow. So if you keep them for a long time, they become quite large. And then they cannot really, I mean, they can move around there. But as you can see here, it's a bit narrow and difficult. And that makes it also more risky for the pigs. Cross-fostering is difficult to perform. And that increases competition at birth, where they compete for the teats. And if there's not enough for all piglets, that will mean that they have a low colostrum intake, and that will increase the risk of disease and mortality due to that. And then there's also the thermal challenge, and that is both for when it's too hot during the summer, but also when it's too cold during the winter. So these are things that we wanted to improve through the work that we have done with Pia, and now you will introduce the hut through the new invention that you have worked with.
Yeah. As you can see in Denmark, there is 4 sows in one hut, and have several pens, each of 5 square meters. Food and water is given inside. The piglets have the creep area where it's heated. The personnel have its own entrance of the hut. The mobility of the hut facility is an aggregate. And in the test hut we have now, they don't have the aggregate because the huts are smaller, and also there is a budget for, so it's very expensive to make the aggregate, but in Denmark it's very, very easy to move the huts. And also the fencing is very easy. Here is what do we call that, Lene?
Yeah, like the productivity
records from the farm. In Denmark. Yeah. You have the number of the total born piglets per litter. It is 18.5. The number of wean pigs per litter is 12.3. The mortality rate of live-born is 26.3. Number of wean pigs per sows per year is 25.5 pigs per sow per year. And the weaning weight of litter is 17.8 kilos a day of 15 in location. And by the PPILOW project, we have to go, right now we have test hut in 3 countries. And my husband, who is also here, we have to go to the farmers. And it wasn't possible for us because maybe I'm strong, but not that strong to lift the walls, and that we could assembling the huts. So we make the huts instead for 2 sows, but in one way you can say you just have make it in the half. So you have the picture over here. So this is the Danish one, and this is the picture from the test hut in Italy. Here you can see we start with the scratch. That all the material have just been sent down there, and then we start making the huts. And this is just more pictures. And when we was assembling the huts, I can assure you there was very, very, very warm in Italy and France. In Denmark we don't get that kind of warm weather. So what we was the experience was when we took the hut outside in the sun, the plastic material went like this. So when we tried to move the hut, the wheel goes like this. And it was a huge problem. So we have to do 1 trip more, go back to Italy and to France. And the solution was that we put iron in the bottom and iron in the top, so we have to move the roof and put iron in both sides. So we could see that that was a important point from the weather condition in the UAE. And in the project, we have get some informations back from the test farmers in France and Italy, and we have tried to make our best to change the problems. So right here you can see one of the test hut we have just set up in Belgium. We have made some changes already. Here is the steel hoops where the sow lie down. Normally it was this in the test hut in Italy and France, but now to help the sow when she lie down, we had made this instead to help her not to cross the piglet. So you help the sow to lie down. And here, because they speak about that it was sometimes a problem that the straw going into the feed and the water through. So try to make a solution for that, because it was not because the sow with her legs get it up there, but when she lie down, she lay back in the trough. So she take all the straw back with her. So that was the solution to try to avoid this. As I told you about the wheel, maybe you remember before it was outside the hut. But in Italy and also in France, the road is very small. So we have to try to make it even smaller again. So now the wheel is under the hut instead. They also told us there was a problem because they said that the door wasn't big enough for the sows to go inside. So we make that a little bit wider. In the new test hut in Denmark, we don't have this big opening, but we think then the weather is very hot down here. It would be good to get more ventilation. So we have made this lamp to open the ventilation, but there was a problem that when it was raining, the water was going inside. So now we have made the roof a little bit wider out to try to, the water's not coming in. Yes. And here you can see the test hut in Belgium, and we have made the fencing for him because he don't have the sows. Normally it's only inside and they have a small area to go out. So this is the first time that he had the sows outside. So we make the fencing, and as you could see on the video, it is very easy. You just have this and you roll it up. So this is from the, yes. And in Italy, France, and Belgium, we try to make the same protocol to when we give in the test data. So try to compare the difference. And if you are interested in more information, this is our website. I can tell you now, it's not updated, but I will try to do it when I come home. But you can contact me and I will send you more information. And we will be here the rest of the day. But tomorrow, my husband will leave. You can see my husband here. If you have any other questions, you can also ask him. But here is the information from us. And once again, I apologize if you don't understand me. I try my best.
You don't have to apologize anymore for the English. Thank you, Pia. So now at the end, I will just say a few words about what we did at Aarhus University, because beyond these very, very practical things that you talked about with rain coming in and the heat and all this, which have been like more adjusted, coordinated to the feedback, then we have made experimental testing of two of the equipment to find out how much should there be inside this hut. Is it just enough, there's a room there, or should there be, like that you saw in the video, should there be heat inside the creep area, so they all have this creep area where the piglet can go in and rest without being disturbed by the sow. But should there be heat in there to provide a better thermal environment inside the hut? That was the first thing we tested. The other thing was this so-called pendulum. We don't really know what we should call it. As you also saw in the video, that was intended. That's a Danish indoor farmer that invented this, that we wanted to test to see if this slowing down could help prevent the crushing of piglets. So that was what we have been testing. So just a few results from that. So we looked into the heated versus the unheated creep area. And you can see here the results from the heated and the unheated. And here we looked at the probability that the first piglet per liter entered the creep area. So you can see here when we had heat on, then all piglets have been visiting the creep area at least once within a few hours after birth. Whereas for those where it was unheated, you can see it took longer time, and we never reached the point within the first 24 hours where all piglets have been inside the creep area. Then we also observed from the video the use of the creep area amongst other on day 2. And there you also see quite a lot different on the average use of the creep area when it's heated and unheated, so much more use when it's heated than when it's unheated. We also measured the weight gain, but didn't find any differences so far in the preliminary results of this. But that we need to take into account that when it's an outdoor setting, it's like in a private farm, it can be a lot of variability that is caused by other reasons than these two on production results. So therefore, it can be difficult to look directly into productivity here. But we concluded here that early and more extensive use of the heated creep area was seen when we had the heat on. So based on the behavior of the piglets, we think this is a good idea to have the heat on at least in a country, the northern part of Europe, where we have quite cold the most of the year, and especially in the winter time. But I think in most countries it's cold in the winter for newborn piglets, where we can see that temperature of them they decrease very fast after birth, and then it's very important that it comes up again. So therefore, the more heat they can get at this time, the better. Then we also looked at this pen feature here. And what we looked at was from the behavior. We looked at every time the sow was lying down, how she uses the walls and the pendulum, where were the piglet position, and how many risk situations were occurring when she lies down. And what we could see here that you have on the first gram here is the duration of the posture change when she lies down, using either no support or using support from the pendulum, using support for the rails, that is the iron things here, or using support by the walls. And you can see, as we expected, that actually the pendulum prolonged the posture changes. But the problem was that sows tried to avoid this. So it actually was not very common that the sow was lying down here. So they really tried to come out to the wall to lie down there. And it seemed to be maybe more disturbing them in the postural changes. The next over here shows then when they lie down, then we looked at how many piglets were lying at the spot where the sow was lying down. And we could see then here again that if there was no use of walls or rails or use of the pendulum, then there was actually more piglet at risk underneath the sow than if the sow used the wall. And that we have the interpretation of that might be because, as I said before, when the sow, she raised up from lying here, the sows like to cross, the piglets like to cluster here in the middle. So therefore it's better to attract the sow out to the wall so that she can lie down out there, and then the piglets will be more lying here inside, because then there's not so many piglets at risk. So therefore we concluded from these two studies that the heated creep area provides thermal protection for the piglets, and it reduced the number of piglets that are lying in the nest and the risky zone, because the heat and the creep attract the piglet into the creep area so that they are away from the sow. And then as I said, we had no effect was detected on the growth rate, but we still think that this will improve the hut design. Then when we go to this pendulum, we could see that it prolonged the postural changes, but the sow avoided to use it. and that more piglets were present in the risk zone when the sow used the pendulum when she lies down than when she uses the wall. And also we looked at the risk of crushing, but we didn't see anything there, again, because it's very difficult to detect actually differences in mortality because there's a lot of variability in it. But here we think that it's better to attract the sow to use the walls, for example, using sloping walls instead of the rails, because we also know that the rails are positioned at the bottom of the pen. It's difficult for the sow to come to the walls and lean against, so that will actually also make her lie in the middle of the pen. So therefore the best pen design would be if we could have sloping wall inside so that the piglets can kind of hide under the walls and the sow can slope down carefully. Yeah, so that was what we have to say today. So if you have any questions, particularly it would be nice because we know some of farmers that have the hut. Maybe you have some words you could say about it. That would be nice.
Yeah. Thank you. We tested these huts for 2 sows, 2 bucks, and we in summer, isn't it? And it was great microclimate inside, so very high difference in temperature because we have and PPILOW a lot of hot and humid hot summer, real hot summer. So temperature control is something very important. And now we are testing also now, today, in this moment. So we found no main obstacles or really more comfortable than the tent that we used, like a triangular or more common structure that we used in the past. So we avoid now totally to use the previous one. And now we are collecting data and also from temperature and like so that productive traits and farrowing and everything. And so at the end of the trial we give everything to you, and so I hope we could be some reflections also analyzing the data that we provide. Thank you.
Are there any questions? More quickly? Yeah? It's late. Thank you.
I was wondering about the vertical bars you showed in one picture. Were they included in that analysis of where the sow likes the line?
No, that was something that you put up after here in the French or Italian hut.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the here vertical.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is why, like the first hut that we showed on the video, that is kind of the prototype that was at the beginning of the project. And then we thought, should all these features be inside and how could we improve the hut further beyond what was developed with the first farmer in Denmark. So it's kind of stepwise development here.
For the next, can the sows leave the hut all the time?
All the time. Yes.
So also they just step across this piglet fence?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe turn to the farmer. Is it, I think, for a lactating sow, it's getting, I think also in other huts, it's just way too warm in summer. But do they still go inside to farrow, or do they avoid it?
They farrow inside.
Okay.
We never use the pendulum. We ask not to have the pendulum structures in our huts, so we never tested these items, but they get farrowed inside.
The pendulum have only been tested in Denmark, not in France, Italy, or Belgium. Yeah.
And that is also what we have seen in other, like in organic farming in Denmark with other types of hut. Particularly in the farms where they have trees, they were worried that the sow would seek into the trees and farrow, but that was actually very rarely occurring. It was when it was really warm, and there was like a very few sows, but I know we don't have this warm weather, but these huts are also improved in terms of being somewhat cooler than these traditional smaller huts. Because I think the sow really likes this isolation. They want to seek this isolation, so that's why I think they go in there also, and then they stay there for.
But also feel free if you have some problems in your, maybe you are an outdoor farmer, and if you have some problems, then try to tell us about the problems, because maybe we can make a kind of solution and think it into the hut. So wherever you come from, if you have some problems and you think this can maybe help in this kind of hut, please feel free to contact us. And again, any questions, we are available to answer.